Hey gang, Dr. G here, Imaginarium. I'm back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Here I discuss the psyche, mental health, and its relationship to the imagination in all its forms. Stories, movies, dreams, all of it. Before there were mental health providers, there were storytellers. It's only now that modern science is catching up with what ancient and indigenous traditions already know. So get ready, because I'm here to bring you the highest quality content using the lowest quality equipment. It's part 5 of my Unlock Your Dream series, and we're talking about the divine child. If you'll remember from the previous videos in the series, and definitely check those out, dreams are basically statements of how we're doing in life right now, but they're in images and metaphors. And those other videos will get into the science of why that is and all of that stuff. Dream characters, if you'll recall, are personifications of current life situations, inner dynamics, things like that. We've talked elsewhere about how animals are basically personifications of our own instinctive forces. They can also be personifications of more general instinctive animal-like elements of our life, that kind of stuff. But what about kids? Well, again, when you're talking about dream characters, you want to make a major distinction here. First off, is it a character that you know, somebody from your memory, or is it a stranger? Is it someone you don't know? That's a big distinction, because if it isn't somebody that you know, the chances are very high that it is a personification like I've been talking about. In the instance of dreaming about somebody that you actually know, it can still be a personification in the previous sense if it's somebody that you haven't interacted with in a long time. In that case, it's probably a personification of the way that you were around that person, emotions that they evoked in you at that time, so forth and so on. If it's about somebody you interact with on a daily level, then it is actually also about how you're dealing with them, and it can be very informative. What I've noticed, though, clinically, is that most of the time people dream about abstract or strangers, abstract characters, people they don't know. So it tends to lean pretty heavily more on the personification side. That said, what about the divine child? So in this case, again, we want to know whether or not it's a stranger. Usually it is, but what is the divine child, right? What was Jung talking about when he first characterized this and trying to reconcile the meaning of it in a dream? Well, in order to do that, he did his usual thing, which is to take a look at myths and folk tales and things like that to get at what the psyche was probably trying to get at. And so what is this motif? Well, this is a motif that finds itself in a lot of different myths around the world. There's examples of the divine child motif in the story of Moses, for example. In Beowulf, you've got the story of Schultz-Schiefing, the story of Taliesin, the Welsh poet, Romulus and Remus, King Sargon of Akkad, the demigod Karna of the Mahabharata. There's also Heracles. There's the child of Izanagi and Izanami from Japanese myth. These are just a couple of examples of this divine child motif that you see in far-flung examples of mythologies that are unrelated to each other, found all over the world and throughout history. So, to qualify as a divine child figure, a dream character must be a child, number one, but there's usually more to it going on. In this instance, the child is someone who is somehow imperiled. Now, they don't have to be in like mortal peril or dire peril, but there's like something, they need help. They need your help, as in you, the dreamer. They're vulnerable. They've been abandoned in some instances, or someone has entrusted you to take care of them. That's a motif I see all the time. In this case, Jung notes that the child in such stories is smaller than small and yet bigger than big. In the myths, of course, the intensity in a myth, they're going to crank up to 11. In a dream, it's going to be more muted usually. Now, what is this character all about? So we're at stage 5 or part 5 of my series. We're right in the middle here. And it's, I think, fitting that the divine child finds its way into this part of the series, because this is a character that I have seen many times in psychotherapy when we're talking to folks who are going through a major change in life. They will start dreaming about this character, a version of this character. There'll be a child that they will be entrusted to take care of. It won't necessarily be their child. Sometimes it is, but usually it isn't. Usually it's a child of someone important. It's not, again, in modern society, we tend to project things that used to have been maybe called gods or whatever onto like celebrities. That's, I think, an artifact of our own culture and the way that we tend to think of things and our mass media influence on us. But the idea behind it is still pretty much the same. It's the idea that there is a more powerful or higher level that is trying to find its way into your life. And you, the dreamer, the ego, is being entrusted to shuttle this life into success and protect it as it's trying to develop and nurture. Okay. So what's going on here? Well, what's going on is that as you are trying to achieve greater levels of individuation or integration, if you will, if you're trying to get through traumas, if you're trying to manage complicated grief, push past depression and anxiety issues or whatever it is, by engaging in psychotherapy, then your non-ego conscious awareness picks up on this, and it will actually activate, and it will try to assist in this process. One of the ways that it does this is through dreams, which are current statements of meaning. So as you are working on yourself and trying to get better and you're working in therapy, what is trying to happen is that the current ego is trying to grow into something bigger and better. And the way that the dreaming psyche pictures this is by, again, personifying it. You are being entrusted to a new ego. You are being entrusted to nurture and mentor a new way of being that is going to be you in the future. So it's a major reorganization. This is when you see this kind of dream. You could go years and years and not have a dream like this, and get into therapy and start doing intense inner work. And very often, that's when you'll see this dream emerge. The person will have this dream. It's usually a good sign, but it's always kind of dependent on the behavior. Like, if I have a dream like this child is entrusted to you to protect, and you start beating him up with a crowbar, well, that suggests that maybe things aren't going as well as they could. That hardly ever happens. Like, more often than not, what's going on is that the ego is like, oh, okay, sure, let's help. This young person, this baby, this child needs my help, and so blah blah blah. And so it's usually a good sign. We amplify that in therapy, and things proceed swimmingly. All things going well. But generally speaking, I think it's a good thing to notice this, because we've got basically the psyche trying to create a new unifying force. It's emerging. It's separating from its own origins. And because it's doing that, it's endangered. It's new. Therefore, it's vulnerable to the old way of looking at yourself. But at the same time, it's also very powerful. It has the capacity to grow and endure despite great pain and suffering. That's what the myths are always talking about. How, despite being persecuted or being hunted down, of course, I didn't mention the story of Jesus, right? That's another version of this too. The divine child is in peril. They're vulnerable, but at the same time, they're immensely powerful. They can endure great pain and suffering, and so forth and so on. So there's this paradoxical quality to it that really, it gets at the heart of the fact that, yes, it may go poorly. This child is vulnerable and may they die from the forces that are trying to destroy it. But if you can get it to the finish line, then it can be greater than where you are right now. It can be more expansive, more capable, more adapted, more adjusted to life, inner and on the inner and outer, dimensions to that. Now, here's something to consider, though. If you are working with this kind of thing, with, say, if you're a therapist or a mental health professional, or you're working on yourself, just doing whatever, these kind of stories are very powerful, and we need to approach them with caution. Edward Edinger, who's a Jungian who I really love his writings on this, said that if we were going to work with explosives in our laboratory, let us at least treat them respectfully. So what is the danger here? So the danger is, if I know about this stuff and I have a dream like this, I can get ego inflated. I can think, oh my gosh, this is moving me towards great ego, ego reinforcing and inflating things. And then you just basically are running awry of things. You're not going to get where you need to go. So you don't want to get distracted. Just look at it and go, okay, this is the task. The dream is telling me that I'm on the right track here. I need to keep doing what I'm doing and not get ego inflated about it. That's the danger of these stories. Myths, divine child motifs, or any other kind of mythic motif or folktale motif, they're emotionally resonant and powerful and vivid. And that's why they've survived so many hundreds and hundreds of retellings over the ages. So that's where the danger for ego inflation comes in, right? So that's what we want to avoid. In any case, that's basically what the divine child is about in a nutshell. And so hopefully, as you can see, we're moving into more advanced territory in these middle three parts of the series. The next part of the series is going to be the animus and the anima. That's going to be an interesting conversation. And from there, we will move on to the more advanced dimensions to unlocking your dreams and understanding what they're all about. Not only for yourself, but if you're interested in creative works, that can be very helpful as well. Now, that's what I got for you this week. So until next time, I'll see you later.